Last month, I warned you that the war was only going to get crazier, and, well, this month, I deliver on that promise as the Allied counterattack begins. Greetings, lore members. This is the Dominion War. Now, last month, the Dominion launched a reckless, unfathomable counterattack to reach Beta Z and succeeded. The Cardassian fleets managed to drive through and link back up with the stranded fleets at Beta Z. But rather than undertake an evacuation, they went there to reinforce, despite it being a clearly untenable position. Elsewhere, the Romulans took the Foul Fortress, and further along the front, the Dominion was driven from the Calandra system by the Klingons. And then in the centre, the Federation prepared for its own offensive. And this month, the offensive begins. We'll start back down on the Calandra front, where the most imminent and predictable action happens. The offensive begins and the Klingons close the Beta Z corridor. It was inevitable. It was surrounded on both sides, and the result is that the Klingons crushed the Cardassian First Guards Order at Nami. That is quite a significant victory for the Klingons and quite a significant loss for the Cardassians, who were not happy that the Guards Order was thrown under the bus like this, but them's the breaks sometimes. I'm sure that's what the Vorta said. However, despite this, Beta Z remains reinforced and heavily fortified. There's now a Jem'hadar fleet and 2 Cardassian fleets defending that system, not to mention all the ground units that entails. They are really committed to holding on to Beta Z, and to an extent, it has some tactical value because it is tying up Federation fleets behind the front, which are having to besiege and slowly try and either wait them out or undertake an extremely costly assault. So it's not completely without reason, but I don't think the Dominion was undertaking this operation on tactical reasons. I think they are clearly thinking of some other bigger picture to which we are not privy to, and certainly the Cardassians aren't privy to. In support of this attack, Starfleet drives the Dominion from Jaros. It was an exposed salient, an easy drive. The Cardassians fell back pretty quickly. Now, more significantly, I mentioned last month the significance of the Dominion losing in the south, and losing the Calandra system and losing the Foul Fortress. Because effectively all of those assets that they had built up down there, the road to victory as it was once called, is now going to be turned on them. There's now a clear route for the Klingons to begin encircling the Dominion forces in the southern front, with a Klingon fleet at Calandra, 2 more at BD 9127, and eventually they'll move up to Foul and completely encircle the southern front and be able to attack it on multiple flanks, and the Dominion position there will become even less tenable than it already is. Currently, there are already gaps in that southern line, and all it really needs is for the Klingons to get in position. They're just manoeuvring at this point. This is just manoeuvring, and once they do, the Cardassians won't be able to stop them all. Meanwhile, the Romulans secure their hold on Foul. Obviously, they arrived last month at the fortress, but it's a substantial space station and required some very careful besieging, but the Romulan warbirds were well placed to do that. Once the Romulans arrived at Foul, it was only a matter of time, and while the Jem'hadar and Vorta did resist, the Cardassians surrendered as soon as they got the chance, because they knew that help was not coming. And that is not going to be the last time we see that happen, in all likelihood. Now, I mentioned a Federation counterattack, and here it is as promised. A Federation fleet and the Romulan Praetorian Legion attack the Jem'hadar fleet in the central front. Effectively, that location between the Badlands and the McAllister Nebula. Now, unfortunately, they are repulsed by heavy casualties. Their plan was to, rather than engage in a overall linear action, fleet to fleet, their plan was to try and isolate the Jem'hadar, punch through, create a gap and allow their ships to all follow through. That didn't happen. The Dominion were sufficiently well positioned and also well enough reinforced by the Cardassian fleets to their left and right that they were able to stand their ground and drive back the Federation and Romulans despite their initial superiority in numbers and firepower. So while there was an attack, nothing really came of it, and if the Federation want to push through, really here, they're going to need... This is a very narrow area of space. It's politically very important because this is where the border war was fought 20 years before. So it's a pretty significant area politically. But in order to get it, they're going to need something of a sledgehammer to drive through because it's such a narrow area packed with fleets. There's no way that it isn't going to be a slugfest. That is all on that front for the moment. Now, of course, I mentioned that the loss of the Cardassian Guards Order, one of the most proudest, the most prestigious arm of the Cardassian fleet to be wiped out, was to say the least a bit of a blow to Cardassians. But grieve not, Cardassians, because you don't want those dusty old Guards Orders anymore. We've got something way better. We've got the Joint Orders. Mustering at Menorah is the 26th Combined Order. This is unlike any other fleet previously fielded by the Cardassians. This is a fleet that incorporates Jem'hadar and Cardassian ships in them, working in close cooperation with each other, with mixed formations of Cardassian and Dominion ships working together. So you have Cardassian Galors supported by Jem'hadar fighters, Dominion battlecruisers supported by Sartans, and this is really where all the cream of the crop has been going. There's been, of course, throughout this year, new ships have entered the fray, like the Sartan, the Janissaries, and, of course, the Galor Mark IV. And all of those have been set aside and reserved for the Joint Orders. These units are Cardassian, but largely Cardassian, although they are commanded by Vorta, and they are loyal to the Founders. I'll probably do a whole separate video on the Joint Orders, the politics behind them and why they exist and what kind of ships they operate. But needless to say, these are the new elite units of the Dominion, and the hope is that these new elite troops with high morale will turn the Dominion's fortunes in this war. The Dominion is still very much on the back foot, but they are determined, and they seem to continually conjure up new fleets from where I do not know, but their will to fight and their ability to maintain their fighting force is certainly beyond question. But the question is, will these new fleets that the Dominion is forming, will these new Joint Orders be up to the task of reversing the Dominion's fortunes and winning the war? We'll have to find out. See you all next time.